business level strategies and what can you actually do. I want to talk about that, and I'm also going to say that I don't believe in a lot of it actually. Now, so if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Maslach. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out, and I want to pay the favor forward to help you out as much as I possibly can. So what is business level strategy? So strategy in general, it's a really complicated topic, but we're really thinking about some sort of foresight that multiple managers have, or maybe it's a single manager, I don't know. And they come together and they sort of see where the future's going to go. Then they get various different stakeholders together to work towards that particular future. Most often it's solving some sort of problem. Maybe it's many different problems. Maybe it's getting many different managers together and you work together to try to resolve this particular problem. So the idea of strategy itself is very difficult to sort of put your fingers on. We study it a lot. There's people trying to sort of make sense of this, but it's a challenging topic. Now, what are business level strategies? What we're really talking about, what we're thinking about, is two sort of dichotomous business level strategies. It really comes from what I know, and I don't know everything, is from the profit equation, revenue minus costs. And you're looking at, on one side, increasing revenue, which is going to be product differentiation, making your thing, whatever that is, that widget that you're producing, or service or whatever, seem superior compared to what everybody else is. And people love that particular thing, whether it's technological capabilities, maybe it is, you have really good customer support, those particular kind of aspects, where you look at different sort of characteristics that you can be better at. Now, on the other side, where you're looking at the cost, revenue minus cost, and cost is you're trying to reduce the cost so you can sell this thing at a lower cost compared to what your rivals are. Now, it's not the lowest possible cost that you can sell it. That would be silly. But, slightly lower than what your competitors are. Now, why we sort of focus on these two particular things, it's hard to do both of them together. And yes, you do want to try to do both of them in a lockstep fashion, but we tend to, because they're pulling in opposite directions, we tend to focus on one and tell you to get to focus on one of those particular sort of dimensions, and then either increase the amount of revenue that you can bring in by making something that seems superior, product differentiation, superior to your rivals, or you do sort of low cost thing where you reduce the cost so you can sell this thing as cheaply as possible, or not cheaply as possible, sort of cheaper than your rivals, slightly less expensive than your rivals. And how do you do that product differentiation? It's a lot of, to be honest, I think storytelling is a big part of it. It's also focused on key characteristics and key traits and pursuing those particular things. And then on the low cost side is really a huge part of it is economies of scale, producing things at a larger scale so you can reduce the cost compared to what somebody else can and get that specialization that's difficult to get. Now, why do I struggle with this? Oh, and there's a third one that is less, I don't know. It's whether it's focused or a broad strategy, so you could focus on one particular area, one particular product category, one particular service, or you can do broad where you're many different products or services. Now, why do I struggle with this? The reason why is that the environment is ever changing. And because the environment is ever changing, having one particular focus is challenging. Not to say it's impossible, but it's challenging. And the other thing that ends up, happening is that the actions, what's going on in the business behavior, the sort of managerial stuff actually bubbles up rather than is kind of like a forced thing. Now, it's, where it's top down where you're thinking of, I'm going to have this strategy and sort of pursue this thing. When you actually get into the real world and you start talking to people and you start actually interacting with them, this is where the more entrepreneurship side comes in, where you actually start talking to them and pursuing them. You're going to realize that how you perceive the world is totally different. And you might actually come up with something that's way different than what you sort of pursued or thought about, right? You might be thinking, I'm going to do product differentiation, produce a really high value product of some sort where people really like. And then you interact with the world and they're like, they don't like it. They actually like something else, right? It's like, Michelin producing, the Michelin restaurant guide, right? Like, that is a weird thing to do, right? And yet it's turned into this whole really lucrative thing that's part of Michelin. I don't know if it's still part of it, but the restaurant guide thing is it's really quite cool that this actually spun out from that. Now there's lots of sort of examples of this, and when you do the entrepreneurship thing, you realize that your perception of the world is vastly off. Your mental model is completely different than what the world actually views and what they're going to perceive of you and what you are actually going to do. And I want you to sort of come into that sort of thinking that having this fixed strategy, this fixed mindset of what you're actually going to pursue it's a little disjointed. It's not going to work the way that you think it is. Now, what you need to do is come into it realizing that you're looking for hints of what actually does work. And those hints of what actually works, you sort of pursue those particular things and you go with it. Now, the other thing that I am a big fan of that I know works, so that's the sort of first part, is the trial and error component of it, where you're looking for these hints of what's actually working, you pursue those things, and you pursue those things aggressively. Now, the other thing that I know works is to keep persisting at something and keep working at something, because you're getting all this information that you wouldn't have had before. Now, in my view, and I don't have a view that everybody else has, right? My view is probably distinct. It's a survival game. It's thinking about, how can I do this longer than somebody else? And once you sort of view this, if you view the world in terms of survival as a variable of interest, things are way different. You pursue things way differently. You look at the world completely differently, and the outcomes that you actually get are much more. I think they match more with reality, to be honest. That then sort of picking these different strategies and sort of pursuing these particular things, I think it's really a survival game where you're persisting as long as you can, and you're looking for information and how to actually do things a little better and differently. So that's it. I think that's the key thing with business level strategy, is know that they're out there. And yes, you have to kind of have that in your mind of thinking either in terms of cost or revenue, but then at the same time, be very adaptive to what's actually sort of working in the environment. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day.